Alrighty, so today we are going to talk about the two New York team in the season preview, starting off with the New York Red Bulls. So just like the New England Revolution in my last season preview, the Red Bulls also have a new head coach heading into this season after they decided to let go of Sandro Schwartz last season as well. Though, while I was pretty high in terms of Marco Mikovic in terms of what he can do with the New England Revolution, I'm not so sure I'm the same with Michael Bradley as well. There's a lot of unknown in terms of Michael Bradley being a head coach, especially when it comes to experience. He pretty much have not had a lot of experience when it comes to coaching in the professional level. I mean, the only experience he had was with the second team. That is, and especially with the way that unlike New England, the fact that the reason why I was also kind of high on Marco Mitrovic is because the roster that he is given is actually pretty decent, and it's definitely one that he can work to trying to get better and get themselves back to playoff contention. I'm not quite sure you can say the same about Michael Bradley as well. Sure, there are some good pieces at least on the attacking end, but then the rest of the team, there is some big questions after that as well. Now, last season, obviously, their playoff streak finally came to an end, and you kind of had a feeling this was going to happen. Like it just feels like even though it's impressive to see that the Red Bulls have had this long playoff streak that goes all the way back to 2009. You just kind of had a sense that eventually it's going to come to an end because it just feels like that streak is just kind almost like a thing what we call kicking the can down the row as a classic kind of metaphor talking about this team. They weren't really going anywhere when it comes to the progress. They've been kind of stuck in mediocrity for so long now, and that's kind of why a lot of Red Bulls fans are very frustrated with this team. It's not because of the fact that this team doesn't miss out on the playoffs very often. It's just because they don't really do much. When of course they make it to the playoffs, barring that 1 year that they had back in 2024 when they made that miraculous run to the MLS Cup. That is, and you also kind of had a sense that with the mediocrity kind of performance that they shown in the past half decades or so, it was kind of bound to happen. The fact that they would miss the playoffs for the first time since 2009. But yeah, they finished 12-7-15 and finished with 43 points. Their last playoff appearance, usually it's last year, but this time it's 2024. And then, of course, just like the New England Revolution, this is a team that have never won the MLS Cup, despite the fact that they were original charter members of coming into MLS back in 1996. And just like New England, they had some chances to win that MLS Cup. I mean, 2024, they definitely had a chance to do so, albeit they were kind of heavy underdogs coming into that one against a machine known as the Galaxy, but just unable to get it done. And you can say the same thing back in 2008 as well when they faced against the Columbus Crew. But last five season in 2025, like I said, it's the first time they miss out on the playoffs in quite some while. 12-7-15 and finished with 43 points. In 2024, they finished 11-14-9 and finished with 47 points. But like I said, they made a miraculous run all the way to MLS Cup, only to lose to the Galaxy. Then in 2023, this was kind of the pattern of them just getting stuck in first round exit. Started with 11, their record finished 11-10-13, finished with 43 points, losing to Cincinnati in the first round. And then in 2022, a little better, 15-8-11, finished with 53 points, but they also lost to FC Cincinnati in the first round. The 2022 one was probably more embarrassing compared to 2023 because 2023 Cincinnati was heavy favorites coming into that one. You couldn't say the same thing about 2022 when Cincinnati made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, and the Red Bulls also get that undubious honor of becoming one. I think the only team in the first round of that year that had home field advantage and did not win and move on into the next round. And then in 2021, they finished 13-9-12 and finished with 48 points. But once again, it's another first round exit. And before Cincinnati kind of had some ownage on them, it was the Philadelphia Union that seems to have some ownage over the Red Bulls and hand them a couple of first round exit before, like they did in 2021. Now, looking at some of the transfer that they made, they had a pretty busy off season. Their most recent signing is bring Jorge Ruvacova, which most likely he's the Lewis Morgan replacement, and they spent a lot of money to get him as well. Made him a DP, and he looked decent during his time with Pumas. It'll be interesting to see how he looked now that he's with the New York Red Bulls. They also got Justin Shea, Jaquil Marco Ruddy as part of that rare playoff trade where they sent Wiki Carmona to Montreal, and in the trade. They got Jakiro Marshall Ruddy. They also got a new goalkeeper in Ethan Horvat. They also got Robin Velador from Sporting KC. And for their super draft pick, they picked Thomas Hunt. And then they also got K-Cal on loan with Chivas. And it's going to be kind of weird to see K-Cal in a Red Bulls jersey. And again, Have said this before. If K-Cal was coming back to MLS, I would have thought the San Jose Earthquakes might be giving him another shot. I didn't think another team would basically give him another shot, even if it's on a loan spell. So it'll be very interesting to see how he of course do now that he's on the New York Red Bulls. Now, looking at players that's no longer on this team, there is a lot of key players that were part of the old core that is no longer on this team. Starting off with Noah Ely, their best defender. They decided to sell him off to Bristol City. Then they also lost Daniel Edelman, who's now with St. Louis City. Peter Stroud, now with Minnesota United. Lewis Morgan, he's now with San Diego FC. Sean Nealis, who I forgot he's with. I think he's with DC United, if I'm not mistaken. Wiki Carmona, as I mentioned, he was part of that rare playoff trade that saw Shaquille Marshall already coming to the Red Bulls, and Wiki Carmona going the other way with Montreal. Carlos Cornell, that's another big one as well, going back to Brazil, even though originally he was supposed to go to Orlando City. That didn't, of course, work out. Alexander Hack, of course, going back overseas. Curtis Ofori, Marcelo Morales, Victor Bogush, and then most recently, Cal Duncan, who's also going to Minnesota as well. It was actually just announced today that he of course, was signed by Minnesota United. And, as a Loons fan myself, I definitely have some mixed opinion about this signing. I mean, on one hand, I think the Loons address probably the biggest need that they had after signing the James Rodriguez signing of the right back position. And Kyle Duncan can still be serviceable, but unfortunately, he's not the same player as he was a couple of years ago. I mean, a couple of years ago, we kind of saw the upside that he has, and he did really well with that upside that he got his move to Europe. Played okay doing his time in Europe as well. Eventually, come back to MLS and coming back to the Red Bulls. But unfortunately, he's kind of one of those players that we've seen this more often, where sometimes when players coming back from Europe and joining the team that they used to be joining, that kind of make them the big name and get that big move to Europe, they kind of suffer a bit of a regression. And Kyle Duncan is a great example of that. Didn't really had a great season last year with the Red Bulls, and hopefully with him going to Minnesota, maybe a little change of scenery can help him and get back to what was supposed to be one of the more promising fullback, and a guy that definitely had some national team talk a couple of years ago when he made that big move to Europe. Now, look at the first 5 games for the New York Red Bulls. So they face against Orlando on the road for the first game before playing at home against New England. Then they play against Montreal at home before going on the road to face against Toronto. And then they face against Charlotte FC on the road. Last 5 games, they face against Toronto at home before facing against Inter Miami at home. Then they go on the road to face against New England before going on the road to face against Nashville. And for their decision day game, they're going to be playing against Atlanta United on November 7th. Now, looking at the strength of this Red Bull side, it's going to be the attack. I think the attack is going to be good this season as well, and that's barring the fact that when you look at this attack as well. Last season I mentioned the fact that while they definitely did some big upgrade on the attack by bringing Choupo-Moting and Emil Forsberg as well, I was just kind of wondering whether both of those guys can stay healthy for most of the season. And while Forsberg did miss some time last season, he definitely didn't miss as much as I thought he would. And Choupo-Moting surprisingly stay healthy for the whole season because I was betting the fact that he was gonna miss time, considering he always had some injury problems in the past as well. So yeah, it will be very interesting to see whether if those guys can stay healthy, especially that they're getting older. But I do like some of the addition that they have on the attack. Again, Rubakova is a big one. He is the Lewis Morgan replacement, and if he can look just as good as what Lewis Morgan was to this Red Bulls side, there's no doubt that I think that will add even more dynamism to this attack as well. So what's the biggest weakness? Well, it's got to be the defense as well. I want to also say the midfield as well, because they lost a lot of pieces in the midfield as well. They replaced with a couple of depth players as well that I'm not quite sure it's kind of up to par in terms of being a respectable midfield. But the defense is the one that I'm very concerned right now for the New York Red Bulls, and I even said the lack of it because yeah, this when you look at this back line, especially the center back room, oof, it's ugly. Like it, and we might as well just kind of get to the first big question about this team and the fact that are they even gonna sign any more center back or at least sign another center backs that is an MLS caliber kind of players because with them letting go of Noah Ely and Alexander Hack, both guys that were regular starter last season. I mean their replacement is potentially Robert Valador and Justin Che as well. Yeah, that is not a great option. As if that is your center back partnership, like if that is your center back partnership, oh boy, I feel very bad for Ethan Horvat. I mean, I know Ethan Horvat, him coming back to MLS, which is something that I think it's been long overdue. There was always talk that he was going to come back to MLS, and now that he's back there, we'll see how he's going to fill the shoe that Carlos Cornell left in this team. I think he could be a little bit upgrade compared to Cornell, who was very inconsistent last season as well. But it's going to be hard for him to try to do so when he has no defense in front of him. I mean, I've said this before. When you're a goalkeeper, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you have no defense in front of you, you're gonna have a very tough time. And I think Ethan Horvat is gonna be in for a rude awakening. Like again, if you decide to put Valadera and Shea as your center back partnership, you're in serious trouble heading into this season on the defensive front. So yeah, they got to do something in terms of addressing that center back room because that looks like an ugly pairing and looked like a pairing that could easily give up 50 plus goals at least in my opinion. And then of course, we talk about the overhaul roster. They really are feels like are going through kind of a bit of a building period, even though the Red Bulls front office and maybe even some of their fans don't want to admit the fact that they are rebuilt. But let's be honest, with all the subtraction that they have and all these old pieces that were part of the old core or the so-called old core that they have that's no longer in this team, it is pretty clear that this team is going for a rebuild. It is a complete overhaul. So yeah, how are they going to look like, especially in the midfield as well? I mean, I talk about the defense kind of have some lack of quality. It's the same with the midfield as well. They replace a lot of guys in that midfield with a bunch of guys that are kind of just deaf pieces from last season. So that is something that they'll definitely need to improve. And I also wonder, the other big question with this team, and I think this might be the biggest question you could say about this team, besides the lack of center backs that they're bringing in and the quality that is what's going to happen with Michael Bradley and what kind of tactics and game auto that he will use. There's also no doubt that I think he might be giving a big bit of a leash, and especially I think he will get a chance maybe for the remaining of the offseason or even in the summer transfer window to get his guys to really begin this rebuild that the Red Bulls are in. But it will be very interesting to see what kind of tactics and game model that of course he used. Some people say that he might make this Red Bulls team a little bit more pragmatic than previous season and might even not go with your traditional Red Bulls kind of game model. For a long time, the Red Bulls game model has always been about pressing. There's a reason why I always mention the energy drink soccer kind of style. It comes from the New York Red Bulls. In fact, it doesn't even come from the New York Red Bulls. It comes from pretty much the whole Red Bulls franchise as well. I mean, you look at other Red Bulls team around the world like RB Leipzig and even RB Salzburg, they use the same game model of being a pressing kind of system, and I can imagine the fact that the Michael Bradley might abandon that because it feels kind of very un Red Bull like the fact that they don't think about pressing high up the pitch and trying to suffocate you. But I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe he might change it a little bit. And again, judging from what I also heard from last season, the fact that when I said that this team maybe be pragmatic, he didn't really quite do that last year when he was with the Red Bulls 2 team. They at least play some good soccer as well and some good possession soccer as well. So maybe that might be something that he might do with this team. Either way, I think he is going to get a bit bigger leash, and especially him being a legend for the Red Bulls as well, a player that used to play for this team and really kind of made himself a name when he originally played with this team back in the mid 2000s That is. I mean, I think he is definitely gonna get the leash, and especially hopefully he's the guy that really get the this rebuild going for the Red Bulls to hopefully maybe get themselves back to where they were about a decade or two ago, where it's hard to believe that just about 10 years ago this team was considered to be a contender in the East. They regularly win the supporter ratio, and this is always kind of a team that I've always mentioned. It feels like a team that is kind of like the almost like the Buffalo Bills of MLS, of always having some good team but never able to get it over the hump uh, in the end. Or maybe in an NHL term, I would say this is kind of like the San Jose Sharks of MLS, a team that always tends to be good, always make it to the playoffs, but never able to get over the hump as well. So, do I think they're going to get over the hump this year? No. This is really just the first year of the rebuild that they're going through. I would say that their ceiling is probably going to be once again making to the playoffs, because I know when you look at this Red Bull side, I don't even remember the last time they missed the playoffs in consecutive year. That is because remember last time they missed out on the playoffs back in 2009. They were coming off of an MLS Cup, and then next thing you know, they went 15 plus years without missing out on the playoffs. So if the trends the does happen again, so I guess maybe the Red Bulls are gonna go another 15 years without missing out on the playoffs, and the next time we'll talk about them missing out on the playoffs will be somewhere in 2040 or something like that. So maybe the upside, of course, is this team maybe sneak into the playing round. But the low obviously is going to be third team. The low obviously is going to be them missing out on the playoffs, and especially how loaded the Eastern Conference is. I wouldn't be surprised that that might be the case, and especially when you also look at the quality of this team. Again, I'm being very generous of them putting them into the playoff conversation, because I've always said before, like eventually they'll always find a way to get themselves into the playoffs. And it's also been a really long time since the Red Bulls have had just an absolute disastrous kind of season. I mean, last season was probably the closest of them missing out on the playoffs, but even then, I mean, it's not like they finished like 14 or 15 position in the East as well. So yeah, I think I'm gonna put them in 13th position as the lowest, and that's if everything just kind of fall apart, and maybe Michael Bradley might not be ready for this job, and whatever the midfield defense that they try to put out there, they don't really add some addition, and this just looks like a very bad team, even if they have a good attacking team. Though I will also say maybe that kind of makes the team much fun to watch, where we've seen before where teams that are good on the attack but are bad on the defensive side, there usually means that there's going to be uh blockbuster kind of or box office kind of material, and that's kind of something I don't usually say about the New York Red Bulls. They're always a team that at least in previous year, I've always seen Red Bulls games kind of become a little bit dull, especially in the beginning as well. Maybe that might be different this season, especially looking at the strength and the weakness, and what exactly Michael Bradley is going to do when it comes to maybe bring a new game model, something that is kind of maybe gone away with the whole energy drink soccer kind of style that the Red Bulls have been running for just such a long time now. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Talk about the New York Red Bulls in my season preview. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this season preview. And if you're a Red Bulls fan, what do you think is the strength, weakness, free big question, and your expectation and your prediction where they're going to finish this season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.